I'm Mandy Yarkich from Creative Matters, and you're listening to Creative Matters on Air, where I have conversations with new and established artists from around New Zealand. I love to listen to artists' stories and learn about their creative process, and maybe you do too, which is why I've made this podcast, to inspire, inform and educate. I hope you can take away something positive and encouraging from each of these amazing stories to help you on your own creative journey. Hi and welcome to Creative Matters. Today I'm talking to photographic artist Annemarie Hope-Cross. Annemarie was born in Wellington, New Zealand, grew up in Auckland and has lived in Alexandra, central Otago since 2008. Annemarie uses 3 historic processes that date back 180 years to early pioneering photography techniques, some of which are referred to as cameraless photography. Her mousetrap camera is set up outside in her back garden. It takes 6 to 8 hours to create the images and a lot of hoping that the weather does not change in the meantime. It can be fraught with peril, but it's the part I enjoy, says Annemarie. It's serendipitous, but nothing is guaranteed in life. Annemarie works intuitively, aware but not restrained by those who have gone before. She makes images to comment, to appreciate our world, and to satisfy her heart and mind. She shares her work, hoping that the images she makes will speak to others. In August 2017, Annemarie was diagnosed with a rare triple-negative aggressive form of breast cancer at the age of 49. She wants to tell people the positive stories of breast cancer, of ploughing through, taking on challenge and accepting the changes cancer can bring. As Annemarie and her husband Eric Schusser are both photographers, they are in the unique position of being able to work together and put on paper the journey many go through as sufferers and carers dealing with cancer. It was a privilege to speak with Annemarie today. Her story of her unique photographic practice and creative process and how it is connected to her journey with breast cancer is inspirational and heartwarming. You can see images of her work on her blog post on our website, creativematters.co.nz, and also on her website, annemariehopecross.com. I've also included links to the process and artists that inspire her work at the bottom of the blog post if you'd like to learn more. My apologies for the echoey quality of my sound in this Zoom meeting. I accidentally recorded without my mic connected. Calling Annemarie in Alexandra. Good morning, Annemarie.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm really well. Thank you so much for being on this podcast and welcome to Creative Matters.
Thank you, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
You're welcome. All right, Annemarie, I know that you have many influences in your family, artistic and creative influences, so I can't wait to hear all about it. So can you please take us right back to the beginning and talk to us about your childhood and yourself as a child?
Sure. I was born in Silverstream in Upper Hutt, Greater Wellington area, and we moved to Auckland when I was young, and I lived in a fabulously supportive, encouraging family, mum and dad, younger sister and brother, and we didn't have TV till I was about 13, which was probably a bit odd, but I see the benefits now. We made things. Dad built amazing scale model aircraft and we would go and fly them on airfields. And I have memories of open skies and skylarks and grasses and sunshine. Mum was a gardener. She sewed and knitted. We were a musical family. Church was a big part of our lives. Mum was the church organist. And it was a good family unit. I learnt to play the clarinet and various other musical instruments. We made things, we did things, and when Mum was out at choir on Thursday nights, Dad and I would sneak into the kitchen and process films. He had studied photographic chemistry in Cologne in Germany, and as part of that, and his own work at AGFA and his own love of photographic things. He instilled that in me, and I guess I caught the bug early. And we had a lot of glass plate negatives, which came from my mother's side of the family, and beautiful wooden boxes, and photographs from Dad's side of the family. So really early photographic heritage, which Dad and I would look at together. We would do a bit of family history research, but he was teaching me from quite an early age, even before we had a darkroom, to appreciate photography in all its different forms. And at the same time, Dad's father, or parents I should say, lived in Taupo, and one of my earliest memories is of going to see them in their new house on the edge of Lake Taupo, and HHC, Henry Hope-Cross, as he was known, had built a darkroom, and it still stands in my mind as the most fabulous darkroom a person could ever want. I don't recall actually doing anything in there. It was very much a case of look and don't touch. But again, there was that sense of magic and something special about that place.
And that would have been, early on, a sort of a special memory that's kind of stuck with you, I guess.
Yes, totally. Yeah.
Amazing.
His wife, Nan, my grandmother, she taught me about herbs. So at the same time as I was learning about the darkroom, there was lavender and rosemary outside the back door, and she explained to me that they were useful. And somehow that's been an important little thing that's during my life.
Yeah, and that, I guess, you're interested in botanicals now, and you love your garden, and, that's probably come from that, I guess.
Quite possibly. And of course, Mum and her mother and their love of gardening as well. So lots of strands from the family who've gone before.
Which is so lovely, isn't it, to kind of keep those memories alive in a way.
Yeah, waka papa.
Yeah, exactly. That's really cool. So were you actually starting to take photographs as a child?
Yes. Somewhere there's a photograph of me holding Dad's twin lens Rolly, aged about 18 months, doubtless posed, but it's a beautiful shot. And I can't remember when I didn't have a camera of some sort that Dad had lent me or given me. I really didn't know what I wanted to take photographs of, but I just played with it over time. And I guess initially it was the landscape. But I was looking and seeing and experimenting, but it was the love of making the photographs that is really my most enduring sort of memory, rather than particularly making images of some particular subject matter.
That's interesting, isn't it? And that, that fascination for the process is so evident in your work,
Yes.
That it's really kind of fundamentally process-based, isn't it, in some ways?
Totally, yeah, totally.
It's really interesting. So did you explore the arts or photography through high school?
I couldn't. I went to Epsom Girls Grammar. They didn't teach photography at that stage. I did art right outside my comfort zone. Still have a couple of pieces I'm quite proud of. I did have a wonderful teacher who helped me with the crayons and pastels and whatever else, and learnt to print things with a potato, which was fun. But I was very clear that it was actually about the process of photography, and I couldn't do that for school C art. But that was okay. I think already by that stage we'd worked out that I was probably going to pursue some sort of photographic qualification after school. Dad was able to teach me things in the darkroom. By that stage we had a darkroom. Dad travelled a lot for work, for AGFA, going to Europe, and I would go and delve into the darkroom on my own and did some slightly scary things, but didn't blow the place up, which is good.
That's good.
Always encouraging. And of course you learn a lot when you're having to do it by yourself without someone watching over you.
So just thinking about your photography sort of plans for your future, I guess it's like were you thinking coming out of high school that you'd like to make a career out of photography, or did you think you'd like to be a photographic artist? Or, what were you thinking at that point?
I hadn't really realised that art was a thing in terms of making photographs. So I was heading down a commercial track. I went to Whitecliffe Art School and did a diploma of photographic arts, which was all I could do in Auckland at that point in time. I worked in an advertising agency for a couple of years and realised that commercial photography was really not my thing. And I needed to make photographs for myself, photographing cooked chickens or something like that was, and lighting in a studio basement was just not me. There was a deep need to kind of be outdoors in sunshine and natural light and doing it my way.
Yeah, and I guess in that, with that kind of commercial work, it wasn't so process focused. It was more about the result, which was not really your thinking, was it?
No, and you were, of course, it's good to do what an art director says, but that wasn't what was in my heart.
Yeah, so, and I guess it didn't feel so creative for you.
Not for me. No, not at all.
Yeah. So what happened after your commercial side of things?
Career change. I guess I was trying to follow what I would loosely call a sort of a conventional lifestyle. Earn a living, get married, have a house, all that kind of normal stuff. And it was after my ex left that I decided it was really time for me to do things my way. And I recall when I was in Form 2, a teacher had said to me, to thine own self be true. And I thought, by the stage I was in my 30s, and I thought, this is my time. Actually, Dad had died young, 66, of bowel cancer. And I realised that I had to seize the day. If I wanted to make photographs, I was going to go and make photographs and try and earn a living to support that. But I was going to do it my way. And I had been volunteering for various ambulance events down in central Otago, fell in love with the area and decided I wanted to work down here. And so I very bravely bought a house on Trade Me, and the dream was to ride my triathlon bike fast in a straight line and do more with my photography. I had a big Newfoundland dog, put him in the boot, drove down here, didn't know a soul, started my ambulance job and haven't looked back.
That's incredible. And at that point, were you thinking, I'm going to also really focus on my art practice?
Yes, it was ride the bike fast in a straight line and do more with my photography. And no more specific than that, other than there was a deep desire in me to do more with my photography. And I had no idea how that was going to look. I had no idea of the images I was going to make. I was just literally following my heart.
Yeah, so good though. That's brilliant. And, it's just been such an amazing decision for you, obviously. So I love the story that I've heard that you met your husband, Eric, on the first day of your new job. So can you tell us about that? That's the best story ever.
Oh, yes. So started work as an ambulance officer, and our first call was to a dear Scottish lady, and a chap came out and gave an amazing handover to my colleague, and I was very impressed. I thought he was the doctor, and he was actually the son of our patient, and that was Eric Schusser, and he was a volunteer ambulance officer, hence the really good handover, and thought he looked quite nice, and he had a nice smile. And of course, because he was a volunteer ambulance officer, his day job was outdoor education teacher. On Sunday nights, he would go down and work at the ambulance station, and so he had to work with me. And we got talking about our both having grown up in dark rooms and our love of photography, and he taught me very patiently how to ski cross country, something I had been interested in, and it's gone from there.
Yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah.
Amazing. And you ended up getting married and,
Yeah. Yeah, which is, and he's just the most awesome person, and I'm so privileged.
Yeah, how amazing. And I'm actually speaking to him tomorrow, and his podcast is going to come out the following Friday after yours. So that's going to be a lovely thing to interview two people from the same household, a couple who both have this passion and interest for photography, but have very different practices.
Yes, and our work is so entwined, and I think it helps to see one with the other because that's the way we work.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so great. And we'll hear more about your practice and process in a second. So 5 years ago, Annemarie, you were diagnosed with breast cancer, and I have read that you looked it square in the eye and you want to express to people the positive stories of breast cancer, of ploughing through, taking on challenge, and accepting the changes cancer can bring. And I think, when I read that, I just thought, well, that's an amazing attitude. And already the links that I've had with you, I can see that you're an incredibly positive person. So can you tell us about that journey?
Thank you. Well, I guess everybody has their challenges in life. Mine happens to be breast cancer. And I guess it doesn't matter what the label is for the challenge. For me, there shouldn't be stigma about any of these things. This is probably the ambulance officer talking. But to recognise that here is a challenge and what are we going to do about it? And I also want to raise awareness because it's not always easy to detect some of these things. For me, I could potentially have been found a whole lot earlier, which might have been better. But, I knew I wasn't well, and I'd been several times to the doctor and was made to feel like a hypochondriac. And it was so fortuitous that I had a mammogram. They didn't find anything on that, but they sent me for further checks, and it was literally a hands-on pat-down at the breast clinic in Dunedin, where a nurse found quite a significant lump, and it had spread into my lymph nodes. And unfortunately, it's called triple-negative breast cancer, which is aggressive and difficult to treat, and so I'm finding. But at the same time, it was a huge relief because I knew something was really wrong. I was so exhausted. I was running around doing all these jobs, trying to earn a living, and it actually gave me permission to say, I can't do all this. That has to be okay. I'm going to lie on my bed and think about photography and make things work for me. And so I gave up my work. It was very hard to become a patient. I prefer to care for people, not to be cared for. Mm-hmm. But to think about photography and making images and somehow finding a silver lining in this.
Which is amazing to be able to kind of think like that and have that sort of attitude.
There were tears.
Yeah, I bet. And I'm sure you had some days where you weren't feeling as strong.
Yeah, of course. I'd be lying to say it was easy.
Yeah, but that's the scary thing about cancer, isn't it? That you don't always know that you're not well. I mean, you obviously knew something was wrong, but it's very hard to kind of pinpoint, isn't it, sometimes?
Yeah, it's also about being honest with yourself, I think, and again, not giving up. And I had the advantage of medical knowledge and being a fairly determined person. Might be a bit of Scottish heritage or something. And, you know in your heart when something's not right, and you have to keep on to address things. Hiding stuff doesn't work.
No. And it's such a journey, isn't it? Just kind of getting your head around things and working on your mindset and, Yeah. And it gives you a new strength, I guess.
Yes, you have to dig deep, but it does. And you can learn things and you can meet new people along the way and have moments of joy, and that is even more precious.
Yeah, and you appreciate every day, I guess, in a different way. Yeah.
There's a phrase, dancing in the rain, which I think of sometimes, and that's what it's about. It's about finding those little moments of joy and really celebrating those.
Yeah. And I guess, even though it's not the journey that you would choose, it has given you time for your art practice. So that has been quite a sort of cathartic thing for you through this time. So can you tell us how you kind of managed to start prioritising your art practice?
Well, I was in my late 40s when I was diagnosed, and it was 3 months after Eric and I got married. And it was a bolt out of the blue, obviously, but 5:15 the next morning I woke up and I recalled a time when our family had travelled, when Dad was still alive, to Germany to see where Mum and Dad had lived in Cologne. And it was also, I think, perhaps a little bit about Dad's retirement. But we had gone to Heidelberg Castle, and there was an Apotheker museum there, which is a pharmacy museum, and for some bizarre reason I was captivated by it. And I had loosely had in the back of my head for a long time images of bottles, but at 5:15 the morning after the diagnosis, I woke up and I could visualise some of these images, and I set about making them.
Wow.
And I was lying on my bed because I was pretty ill from all the chemo and, multiple surgeries and blah, blah, blah. But I could visualise how I was going to make these images and how they were going to look. And it was inspiring and it was exciting and it kept me going.
How amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. So had you actually started making photographs and started that process before then, or were you just then thinking, okay, this is what I want to do, how am I going to go about it?
So backtracking a little bit, I had moved to Central Otago in 2008, and I was sort of fiddling around trying to find my way with how I wanted to make images and the sorts of images I wanted to make. And when I was unpacking into my home, I'd found a couple of little brochures that my father had brought back many years before, and I don't even really remember him giving them to me, but they were about the earliest days of photography and a chap called William Henry Fox Talbot. And of course, I was on my own. I had plenty of time in the evenings or whenever I wasn't working, and I went Googling. And I learnt about Fox Talbot, hadn't learnt about him in art school, and discovered that there was a couple, Mark Osterman and Franz Scully Osterman, and they were teaching workshops over in England, teaching Fox Talbot's very first process. And that took my fancy. I liked the idea of it, and I sold the triathlon bike and a few other things, got a little scholarship, and hightailed it over to England in 2011 to learn about the dawn of photography.
That's incredible. Wow. And that was the beginning, really, wasn't it, of a
totally
the rest of the lifetime, I can imagine, working on that kind of thing.
Yeah, so it was a little bit of a drama getting over there. It was winter here, it snowed, the flight got cancelled. I arrived a day late, and so I was slightly frazzled, and I got there, and it's a beautiful little old stone village. They film, Jane Austen type movies there, and it's near Bath in Wiltshire, and it was a slow pace of life. It was a complete slowing down after the rush and drama of getting there. And everything I knew about photography went out the window. We had beautiful Italian art paper, which we were coating with a salt and silver mix. Had to wait for that to dry, put a leaf on it, put it outside in the sunshine to expose because it needs UV in order to make an image. And it was such a light bulb moment. I just realised, sitting there surrounded by these old stone walls, out in the sunshine, sitting in the grass, literally, that this was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. It was amazing.
That is incredible. And, I know you believe in serendipity, but it just seems like everything was kind of aligned for you to get over there. And somehow, and after seeing those pamphlets like that, it's just one thing sort of lined up, everything lined up, I guess, and off you went. And it's quite an unusual thing to go and do, on the other side of the world, all of a sudden.
And a bit random, really, because I had no real reason for doing it other than I felt I had to.
And
when you don't have lots of money, that's either brave or stupid. But I felt I had to do it. And to my mother's credit, she supported me and actually came with me to keep house while I did this. And we went on to Scotland afterwards and visited some of the places where her family had come from, which was also precious for me. So Eric wasn't able to go, of course, because he was having to work, but it was wonderful to have Mum's company and for her to be able to enjoy it too. And of course, she's been a huge part of my journey, supporting my photography, and as Dad had when he was alive. So it was quite precious to have her there and keep that link going.
Yeah, totally. That's amazing. So what happened after you did that workshop? I guess you were feeling incredibly motivated.
Yes, well, I did 2 workshops actually. The Dawn of Photography, which was about photogenic drawing, Fox Talbot's very first process, which then led to us all being able to make negatives and positives. And then I did a second workshop, which was the wet and dry collodion process. So that's an 1850s photographic process. Rocket science compared with photogenic drawing. I got back home, didn't know a soul in New Zealand who was doing any of these things, and of course no way of finding chemicals and all the rest of it. So it did take me a wee while to try and access some of these things and figure out how I was actually going to do this at home, but I did get there.
That's amazing. And you didn't have a darkroom at that time, but you built one in your house.
Correct. And the wonderful thing about some of these processes is that, particularly photogenic drawing, fairly slow. So I was able to convert the laundry and use that for quite some time. And it's fairly simple. You don't need a lot of room, and I've spent enough time in darkrooms to know how to work fairly smart in a small space, which has helped.
Yeah, that's great. So the washing got neglected in favour of the photography, or did you relocate?
Who cares about the washing?
Exactly, I agree. So Annemarie, the processes that you use are obviously processes that a lot of us aren't familiar with. You know, I'd never really heard about it until I started researching your work, and it would be nice if you could just kind of paint us a bit of a picture of what the photographs look like and feel like, and then also talk about the different processes that you use. So we have got some links on the bottom of your blog post, which lead us to, talking about the process or seeing videos about the actual process that you're going to be speaking of, which is great. So people can have a look at that. They'll also be able to see your images of your beautiful work on your blog post. So that will be helpful. But if you could just, paint a bit of a picture for us about your process and your final product.
Sure. So photogenic drawing takes a long time to expose, especially if it's in a camera. I use a replica of Fox Talbot's very first camera, known as a mousetrap camera, because apparently it looked like a Victorian mousetrap. And it has a lens, and it's a very simple, it was based on a camera obscura, if folk know what that is. And I coat paper and I put it in the back of the camera and put that out to expose. It takes about 6 to 8 hours, depending on how much UV you've got. So you're contending with movement, if the wind gets up or if the rain comes, shadows and all that sort of thing. But the effect is fairly soft. There's not a lot of detail because the lens is quite poor, but I like that. And I hope that there's a sort of a slow, meditative, ethereal sort of look. They don't really look like photographs, although technically they are. Could you compare them perhaps to charcoal drawings or light? I don't know, but they're soft, and that's important to me.
They have a real softness, and they feel quite textural, even though they're not, but they just have, I think, a more textural feel than your average modern photograph.
Yes. Some of that, of course, is because of the paper. Because we scan the negatives generally. I mean, sometimes, there are originals available for sale which are negative or a positive, but I won't get too technical. But a lot of the time we make limited edition or one-off reproduction prints from my small paper negative, so that texture from the paper comes through, which I think is quite beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful. So do you set up the mousetrap camera focused on some flowers, for example, in your garden, or do you actually put the flowers in the camera? Or is that outside the things?
It's all out in the garden. I've photographed buildings in the past, but especially since my diagnosis, I've been working almost solely in the garden. And because I love the garden anyway, and it just works for me, I can lie down and have a rest while the camera's working its magic. So I have a little bower in the corner of the garden and a table, and I will set up a scene, which can sometimes be quite intricate, depending on what mad thing has taken my fancy at the time. And the camera goes on the tripod and points at scene, and I pray for sunshine.
Oh, yeah, you need the sunshine. And could you actually just put the camera onto like a flower in the garden, or does it have to be kind of arranged and set up?
No, you can point it at anything, and if you can focus the lens and see something in the back of the camera, you can make an image very roughly, yeah.
And what happens if the sun goes away?
It's not such a good image.
And do you like it sometimes when it's not such a good image? Does it still have an interesting effect?
Yeah, it can do. When I was still experimenting in the early days, I set up a vase of anemone, windflowers in autumn anemone in the garden, and the wind actually got up a little bit, and I was really annoyed about that, and I nearly didn't process the image, but I did, and actually I love it because there is a sense of movement in the flowers, which I would never have thought would work. So that was a really interesting lesson.
Yeah, that would be beautiful. I can imagine that.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting. And I guess, you obviously enjoy the experimental aspect of the process and not being completely sure what the final product's going to be like.
That's part of the magic, and also pushing the boundaries. What can I do with this? What can't I do with it? What else can we try, and what's going to happen? It can be intensely frustrating. Sometimes I have to make an image 4 or 5 times before I've got something that I'm happy with, but it's always a learning process, and it's just completely addictive.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I guess you have some sort of happy accidents quite often, where like the movement with the wind, where you think actually, and that could take you down a whole new path, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which is nice. Yeah. And what other challenges do you find with that process?
I guess the limits of the camera, because it is a very simple camera. It's a poor lens. But I love it. I absolutely love my mousetrap camera. It is my most precious possession. And I have bought a bigger Gandolfi, more modern bellows camera, which I also work with. But if I'm going to use a camera, my preference will always be the mousetrap camera, and the limitations of it. I don't always use a camera, though. There is such a thing as cameraless photography, and that was actually where Fox Talbot started, making simple images of lace and flowers, and I love doing my own modern variation of that, and I've really pushed the boundaries with that as well. So doesn't need to have a camera to make an image. Is very much part of my ethos.
Yeah, which just sounds really sort of hard to imagine.
Yeah.
How does that work?
So essentially, whatever process you're using, and I use several different photographic processes, you can make, you're using a substrate, you have chemicals on your paper or glass or tin, and put an object onto it and expose it to light, to UV, and that will make an image. And I have loads of fun, again, pushing the boundaries, making images like that. And I've been working on a series recently on endemic birds of New Zealand, which, I can't point my camera for 6 hours at a bird and expect it to sit still. And most of the birds I'm making images of are either so extinct I'm never going to see them in real life, or not around me anyway. So through various processes of trickery and whatnot, I'm making images out in the garden of birds without a camera.
Wow, that's amazing. And have you used that process with other themes as well?
Yes, totally. So in 2013, I was really privileged to go back to Laycock as artist in residence, and I spent many weeks making images and using the photogenic drawing process, taking it to new levels. And I was captivated by Fox Talbot's beautiful library, and I made a series of bookmarks, which were, again, cameraless images about the books, the spines, the gold on the spines, which were just adorable. And then a cloister series, which is on and off, ongoing. Laycock was built in 1232 by Ella of Salisbury, who was important to me. And she built it as a nunnery. There were cloisters, which are still there, and they have a real sense of peace and a sense of safety, which is really important to me. And these ancient buildings and stones, I had the opportunity to spend hours there and contemplate the women who had been there, who had lived there. They weren't necessarily nuns. Sometimes they went there to probably escape men or, whatever, and be in a place of safety. And that sits deep within me, and I want to make some images about that. But the cloister series were about making shapes loosely representative of the cloisters, but also thinking about the windows and a place of safety. But also by placing flowers within those cloisters, I was thinking about Fox Talbot's garden and those early days of photography.
And that cloister series is so beautiful, the way you have the sort of the church window shape, and then the blank paper around that. I really love that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's very striking. So, and there's the sort of brownness of those images. So that, how do you actually apply the colour, or do you have any choice in what sort of colour you have?
I have tones of brown, so that's the photogenic drawing process without a camera, and it depends how you expose it as to, and then process it afterwards, tone it, etc., as to exactly what sort of a brown you're going to get.
That's interesting. And then again, the texture of the paper comes through, and it's just, it's a really, really beautiful effect. And then the bookmarks, it has a sort of similar feel, the bookmark series, to the cloister series in a way, doesn't it? Same sort of colours and ideas, but more sort of rectangular feel. Yeah, that's really cool. So interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's just really beautiful work, and it's the kind of work that, somebody might see it and just wonder what it is exactly. I mean, it almost could be a painting sometimes.
Yes, yeah, but it's made with light.
Yeah, and love. Light and love. How good is that? So just going back then to the series, the different series that you've created. So a lot of those series are responding to your breast cancer journey and sort of how you're feeling and that kind of thing. So it'd be really interesting to sort of hear about each of these series and, where the ideas came from, and then what you've actually made in response to that. So to start with the still series, that was when you initially had the diagnosis, wasn't it?
Yes, and I was so conscious that I was exhausted, and I'm a doing person. We grew up doing all those things, and it's not easy for me to sit still. I'm not what I would normally call a couch potato. So but I knew I had to be still. And when I thought of those bottles and I realised I was going to make images using a very slow process, it just fell into place really. And so I read a lot. I absolutely love reading, and even when I wasn't actually able to read words, I would look at pictures. Quite a buyer of books, photographic books and art books, and I was researching Heidelberg Castle and, the Otago Museum and so forth, and things would come to mind. And a bottle of perfume that my father had brought back from Germany many years ago, I've still got, and so that became an image, and various other things, which then were metaphors, or the bottles became metaphors for things, memories, things which were important to me. Even some miner's wine, because we need some wine and some joy in our lives, a link to the past perhaps of Central Otago, but all sorts of little strands of thoughts and things that were important to me and memories became the series, which I call Still. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And can you describe what those photographs look like?
Well, they're all made with a mousetrap camera in the back of the garden, and they happened probably over about a year or 18 months or so as I was able. And they are, I hope they have a sense of stillness and peace. They're very personal images. They contain elements of things that are really important to me. Garden plants and some of those, the meanings behind some of those flowers or plants, and moments in time which are significant. Also, I was aware of the painter Mirandi, who just painted bottles in his studio all his life, which gave me hope. I thought I don't actually need to go anywhere. I can do this in the garden.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
So things like that.
And that's like a still life. I mean, it's a nice analogy, I guess. The still series is kind of talking of you needing to be still and contemplative, but also the still life kind of idea. So you are sort of arranging these bottles and flowers and things in a sort of composition, and then it has that sort of beautiful, soft black and white feel, doesn't it?
I hope so, yes.
Yeah, very cool. They're beautiful. And then moving on from that, how did you go to Thursday's Child series?
Well, I was starting to recover from a grueling couple of years of treatment and, far too much chemo and surgeries and whatnot. And a friend died of breast cancer, and I had this dreadful feeling it was happening to me, and then I discovered that actually it had come back again. And again, serendipity. I was part of an exhibition up in Auckland, and the gentleman who had organised it was a surgeon, and he put me in touch with a really good neck surgeon, which was what I needed. And that neck surgeon put me in touch with a really good oncologist in Auckland, and we stayed with Mum, and I had my treatment up in Auckland and my surgery, flying back every 3 weeks or so. It was a pretty rough year, 2019. But again, I was looking at pictures, and of course I had access to Mum and Dad's books at that time and new things to look at, and that was good for my brain. I should add that Mum was an occupational therapist, and I'm sure that's eked into my soul somehow, somewhere. And so I was quite gainfully employed mentally, looking at things and getting ideas. And I'm Thursday's child in the nursery rhyme, and Thursday's child has far to go, whether it's literally 1,700 kilometres to Auckland or 12,000 miles to the UK to learn the processes. Whatever his far to go means, that sort of resonated with me, and I ran with that idea and just started making different images because it felt like the still series was finished. I didn't want to push something that, I was past that. I wanted to move on.
Yeah.
And in a sense, some of the Thursday's Child images are a little bit dark. My friend died. I was really scared of dying. I didn't want to. I've got living to do. And I guess some of those images, I've deliberately left them as negative rather than converting them to positive. And so that has quite a different effect on the final look of the image. But that became Thursday's Child. And at the same time, Eric had decided that we needed to make some photo books. And that was a little bit left of field for me, but that was really good for him to be making photo books of our work while I was resting. And of course that became first Still Intrusion, and then the second book, Thursday's Child, of the images that he made in response to what we were going through, as well as, of course, my own images. Yeah.
Which is such a beautiful thing, isn't it? I mean, it's a lovely record at this time that you're going through together.
And I hope it's a positive thing too, because, yes, okay, there's a diagnosis in the background, but it's a love story. It's a story of us meeting and making work together so differently, but linked. And I reckon that's a good thing.
Oh, it's such a beautiful thing. I mean, it makes me feel teary just hearing you say that. That's such a special thing for any loving couple, and how amazing to be able to bring you both of your practices together in that way.
Yeah.
And have a record of it. You're creating a legacy.
Privileged.
Yeah, that's so great. And obviously Eric's very supportive of you and what you're going through and your own practice as well.
Oh, he's amazing. And when I moved into his house, he built me a darkroom, which was, he offered me diamonds and I preferred a darkroom. And, that's kind of hilarious, but actually also really precious, because my darkroom is such a precious thing and he built it for me with love.
That's really special. And so Eric actually has quite a lot to do with your sort of final process part of the photography, doesn't he?
Yes, there would be, it wouldn't work without him, basically. I'm very naughty. I just want to make images, and he has quite a strict rule that nothing goes out of this house without Anne-Marie's work having been photographed. And I'm immensely grateful. He scans my images and photographs them and is ensuring that there will be a legacy.
That's great. And then
photo books.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, I guess, you have to do that, don't you? You have to have somebody doing that for you if you wanted to sell work or show work. I presume you need to have that. Would you ever actually show your original negatives or positives?
The mousetrap camera negatives, no, I don't, because they're probably just a couple of inches big. No, that's a bit wrong. I don't know. But sort of mostly almost A5 in size, I suppose. So I don't show those because I don't think people would really understand them. But if we make prints from those, then that wouldn't happen without Eric. I actually hate computers. He did encourage me in the early days to try digital, and I realised I couldn't stand it. I am a manual process person, and we've both accepted that and worked it out. And so he does the all-important kind of back room stuff that makes it kept.
Yeah, and sort of comes to fruition, I guess.
Yeah.
The final work. Yeah, which is so good.
Yeah.
What a great combination of professions.
Amazing, eh?
Brilliant. Good choice of husband. So going on from there, I know you have a connection, quite a deep connection to poetry and other sort of readings. So you went from Thursday's Child into A Keats Moment. Can you tell us about that series?
Yes, well, after 2019, I started to recover and I was doing more cross-country skiing than I'd been able to do in a wee while, which was wonderful. And it felt like the light was sort of coming back into my world a wee bit, and I had more energy, and I was gardening and everything was good. And I would love to be a wordsmith. I'm not, but I appreciate good writing and poetry. And I can't even think how, but I became aware of Keats, who died at age 25, and an artistic life cut short, like too many.
Isn't that incredible? Keats was somebody we all know, and we know his work, and he died at 25.
I know.
You realise that?
He worked hard and did well, didn't he, with all his, yeah. But at the same time, Eric was encouraging me to go big, and I've always resisted that. My images, to me, feel like they need to be small and intimate, but I did listen to him, and we tried some bigger prints. And one of the mad things I was doing, even back at art school, to the lecturer's consternation, was playing with colour and hand colouring images and things like that. And my grandfathers both used to do that. So I delved into the family archives and fished some stuff out and started experimenting with putting colour onto these big images that Eric was, when I say big, they're on A2 sheets of paper, encouraging me to make. And actually I discovered that I loved that. And I don't make a lot of images in winter because there's not enough UV light in central Otago, so that has almost become my winter thing. I'll make images in summer and then I'll hand colour them during when we're not skiing, which is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, I love that. And so that lovely sort of, again, that real softness of the colour that you're adding to the softness of the black and white, that is just such a beautiful combination. How do you actually add, I mean, what materials are you using for the colour?
It varies depending on what I'm trying to achieve. I use a whole range of things, from photographic dyes and oils to acrylics. And in the past, at art school, I used pastels and all sorts of things. So at the moment, it's mostly watercolour. Yeah.
It's so beautiful. And then do you actually... do you have a print of the photograph and then you're applying the colour to the photographic print?
Yes.
And then do you get prints made of that, or do you just have the original?
That original is sold.
Beautiful.
And I'm so grateful that people buy them. It's just wonderful. Yeah, I'm thrilled by that. That people love them and are prepared to part with their hard-earned money for them.
Yeah, and I'm sure they are very grateful that you've made something so beautiful. And, it is incredible, Annemarie, that you do have, well, you're probably one of the only people in New Zealand creating this kind of photographic work. But you're also, I think you have one of the biggest collections in the world. Is that right?
Yeah, so those who do learn about photogenic drawing usually go on to, in inverted commas, more exciting, more challenging processes. But I have stuck with photogenic drawing just because I love it. And apparently my body of photogenic drawings is the second biggest in the world, the first being, of course, Fox Talbots himself.
Wow, how amazing is that? So you're creating your own legacy, and, you'll probably be somebody that people will study in 200 years' time as a pioneer in the Antipodes.
Yeah, kind of bizarre because Fox Talbot never came here, of course, but I hope that he talked about having started a process which other folk would build on, and I hope that I am doing that.
Yeah, I think you are, which is really special, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's a privilege and a joy to be able to do that and to go wild and try new things.
Absolutely, yeah. So interesting. And I know you've done another series relating to your love of music. So that's the Earth music and Penseroso. So can you tell us about that? It's really interesting.
So Penseroso, those are cyanotypes, which was a process invented in 1842 by Sir John Herschel, who was a friend of Fox Talbot's. And it was made famous by Anna Atkins, who did some beautiful works of seaweed and things like that. So folks should Google Anna if they don't know her. She probably produced the first photo book of her cyanotypes. And I was driving, this was before I had been diagnosed, and I was driving to Invercargill for work and listening to Beethoven because music is important to me. And Beethoven, with all his medical struggles, this is kind of weird, isn't it, has always resonated with me. And I was listening to his triple concerto and the second movement Largo, and I just hit repeat all the way down to Invercargill, and was imagining how I would make this work of Beethoven's look in my own medium. And so that led to several works which I hope they're intended really to be homage to composers and works that I adore, reinterpreted in my own way, using flowers or leaves or something that tell of my emotion response to the music. But it's also very important to me that there is some of that music in the piece, because I read music and I want people who also read music to be able to know what this piece is speaking of.
Yeah, and it's another language, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's really beautiful. And that's, so you see that the manuscript or the piece of music and then your flowers sort of around it. It's just gorgeous.
Thank you.
And you've got this sort of that bright blue with white in those ones. Yeah, which are really just really striking. And I have a connection to music as well, and the power of music, how it can take you back to a period in your life, or you can connect with it for different reasons. I also had that connection with Beethoven. I lived in Scotland for a few years as a child, and my mum was very sick with a brain tumour, and she nearly died. And my dad used to come home while she was in hospital and listen to Beethoven, and Pastoral Symphony is the one that really gets me going. If I hear it now, it's just like, oh my God, it's a real, I just can't help have a bit of a cry, because it takes me back to that time, and, that experience that I went through as a child, and that connection I developed with my dad, and, all those things. And it's just, it's powerful stuff.
It is. And such a privilege to have access to this music and this artistry from generations before, but it speaks to us today.
And do you listen to a lot of classical music?
Sometimes, because my brain's a tad on the fried side, I have to sort of moderate that, but I have a whole range of music that I love to listen to, from literally Augustinian nuns, peaceful chanting kind of stuff, to there's a David Bowie song in some of my music, or some of my work, I should say, and all sorts of things captivate me, but really probably sort of Beethoven, Chopin, some Mozart, because I played the clarinet and love the clarinet quintet and concerto, etc. And those are things that I played growing up in orchestras and bands as well. So, but there's a whole wide range of things that just jump out at me at different times.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And your work is in the collection of the Fox Talbot Museum in the UK, and also in our very own National Museum Te Papa, which is amazing. How did that happen?
Oh, I'm blessed, really. Eric, through his photo books, decided we were going to Wellington to the photo book festival held there a couple of years ago, and some lovely people bought my books, and one of them was my dear friend Poppy, and also Lisa Mitchell, who is the curator in the photographic department in Te Papa, and it came from that. And I had a wonderful visit with Lisa, looking at Dobby's cyanotypes behind the scenes at Te Papa, which was very precious. And I'm very grateful that Te Papa have wanted to buy the still series and record them for my little place in New Zealand's photographic history.
Yeah, and it's, you really are creating your own place with your work, which is so unique to New Zealand.
Yeah, and I guess, it's something I never learnt about at art school, and that's a pity, but if these things can be recorded for the future and other people can learn about them and know that there are so many ways of making images, of making photographs, and it doesn't need to have a lot of high-tech technology, and it can be slow and meditative and, I hope, beautiful. It just opens the world up for more opportunity for people, and so that's precious to me, that these things can be kept and recorded for the future.
Absolutely, yeah. It's such a beautiful process. And, commercially, I guess it would be kind of difficult to sell your work in some ways. It's not the kind of work that you're going to put all over your website and sell hundreds of prints. So how do you go about the commercial side of selling and exhibiting?
Fairly early after I moved to Central Otago, I joined a collective in Old Cromwell town called Hullabaloo, and I was there for about 10 years, which was wonderful. My work did sell, which surprised and delighted me, but that's when I realised that actually I could at least cover the costs of making the work. And since that time, I'm actually terrible at trying to approach galleries, and there is unfortunately quite an education required, because it's not your normal sort of work to look at, and nobody knows about it, particularly in New Zealand. But I've been really fortunate that here in Central Otago, Ede Gallery have taken me on and have learnt really well about the processes and what I'm doing, and I'm so grateful to them in particular for making it work for me.
That's great, and that's the sort of leap of faith from them, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's been hugely encouraging. And then from time to time, people might see an image on, Instagram or something like that, and people do contact Ede or me, or preferably the gallery, or anywhere else that because I've exhibited in other places around the country from time to time, and it's just wonderful that people want to buy the work.
Yeah, it's great. And you have a limited edition prints. Is that from all your works, or
No,
there's
a very few. Yeah.
So it's not easy to get your hands on an Annemarie Hope-Cross, but if you do, it's well worth it, I would say.
Well, probably the ones that fly out the door the most are the wildflower series, and that came about because when I was at Laycock doing the artist residency in 2013, I discovered wildflower meadows, which are not really a thing in New Zealand. 97% of them have been lost since the 1930s because of what everybody's doing, building and pushing the land back, etc. And I realised that wildflower meadows are quite beautiful. Get down on your hands and knees and examine them and learn about biodiversity. And I started off making some of those with the photogenic drawing process, and then I came home and decided to do that with the cyanotype process, the blue process. And they are very loosely wildflower meadows. They contain lots of flowers from my garden, and they're just celebrating gardening and joy and, beautiful little flowers and leaves, really. And people love those, and those are all originals, and I'll keep making them for as long as people want to buy them.
Yeah, how beautiful. So I've just made the connection, actually. The cyanotype, is that it? Cyanotype is the reference to cyan, the colour of blue.
Correct.
Okay, good. I'm learning about this process.
Well done, you.
Took me a while, but got there in the end. So wow, that's really interesting. Your practice and process is fascinating. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about your practice?
I'm keeping on. I have so many ideas and crazy thoughts about, I'd like to make an image that looks like that. And it's all in my head because I can't draw to save myself. So I have this vision of how I want something to look, and then I have to work out how I'm physically going to do that, which can be very challenging.
I bet. And so what do you see in your future with your art practice?
I have so much I want to do. I would like to make a little book which folk can purchase on my Earth Music series, and I'd like to make a little book on my wildflowers. These are sort of like art books that, you make 150 of them or something, and that's it. There's a really big book which we would like to produce, sort of all my work to date. I'm still working on my endemic bird series, and then there are some other sort of slightly loosely as yet undefined things which are floating around, which are quite different again.
That's great. And it feels like your practice and process is kind of a never-ending, evolving thing that, you could go to all sorts of different areas, I imagine.
Oh, I need thousands of years to do all the stuff.
And I'd love to see an exhibition of all your work. I think that would be really interesting and a beautiful exhibition for people to kind of learn about this process of photography. Maybe at a gallery or museum.
Yeah, well, that would be fantastic, wouldn't it? Especially if someone in New Zealand sat up and take notice. But in the meantime, Eric and I are actually having an exhibition in Barcelona in August. Wow. Which is really exciting. And so Thursday's child works are going over there. So we're about to have a boosted campaign to help get the work on the wall and make that happen. And that's a privilege and exciting too, yeah.
So if any listeners want to contribute to the boosted campaign, we'll have the link on the blog post.
Yeah, so that'll be going live in May, but watch my website or your blog post or something like that.
Oh, that's brilliant. And you're amazing. You guys are so proactive in what you do.
Well, I guess we love what we do, and it's easy then, isn't it? Well, it's not easy, but you just keep going, and it builds its momentum. And, of course, we sort of feed and encourage each other, and that helps too. And we've got some fabulous friends, artist friends nationwide who support us, and of course, our precious buyers who just make you want to keep on keeping on.
Yeah, totally. So I'd love to know what kind of art you and Eric have on your walls apart from your own.
Well, I'm sitting under a George Chance photograph, Autumn, South Canterbury. Not quite sure when he made that, but it reminds me of my grandfather HHC and some of the beautiful old etching plates that he would put over his photographs when he made an image. I have an Anne Noble Wamanui on the right-hand side. Actually, I have two Anne Nobles because Dad used to support her in her early days through AGFA. I have a Susan Durges print as well. She's a cameraless photographer in the UK. We have Bruce Foster. We have Gregory O'Brien and John Paulet. We have all sorts. We love painters as well as photography. So we have full walls. We do have the corridor filled with our own work, and then we have a beautiful little Neil Driver. Neil is a good friend of Eric's work, and Ange Meacham, who's an artist down in Lawrence. So there's lots.
Lots of inspiration for you. And have you ever thought about having a little space on your property to show your work?
No room. Need it for the garden and the photography.
Yeah. Fair enough.
In the ideal world, possibly, but then again, no, because actually I know my place. I need to be making the art, and I would prefer gallery people who are good at gallery things to take that spot.
Yeah.
It would just distract me, and I don't have the energy, and I need to be making art.
Yeah, that's right. It would be like another job, I guess, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And just to finish off, what advice do you have for people, starting off in their creative journey possibly, or maybe you have some advice for people who are, facing a challenge at the moment and and then also maybe commenting on using art to help you through tricky times.
I guess be true to yourself, as John Sharp said to me in Form 2. Listen to yourself. You do know yourself best. It is hard sometimes, but don't give up. And my current phrase is actually fight like a Ukrainian. It's important not to give up, to take one day at a time, to seize the day, because none of us actually know how long we've got. It's just a bit arrogant to think you're going to keep on going forever. But to seize the day and make the most of little moments of joy. And a really precious phrase that I always have in my diary every year is by Roosevelt, and he talks about the man, the person in the arena who fights, whose face is marred by the dust and the sweat and the blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again. But he knows the greater enthusiasms and the greater devotions and spends himself in a worthy cause. And to me, that's, I guess, what it's all about, really. It's keep on keeping on one day at a time and don't give up.
And how beautiful that you can kind of record this journey through your art alongside your husband. And, just it's such a beautiful record of a time that is challenging, but you're learning from and developing from at the same time.
Yeah, and I hope offering other folk little moments of joy along the way too. Yeah. Oh,
well, Annemarie, on that note, I think we need to wrap it up. But thank you so very, very much for being so generous and open, talking about your cancer journey. And I think you will touch many people with this podcast, and I'm sure it will help a lot of people as well. And it's been a complete joy meeting you. I think you're an incredible, positive, amazing woman. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Mandy. Really appreciate the opportunity.